round one of the American Sim Racing Series Sam Maxwell Customs Truck Series playoffs goes to the very tricky Bristol Motor Speedway, the last great Coliseum in Bristol, Tennessee, the half-mile bull ring here tonight. There will be a lot of action on track and off track as we keep an eye on the championship. Round one features 8 drivers, and they'll be 12 drivers, and they'll be fighting for 8 spots in round 2, and then 4 drivers in the last roundup at the championship in Homestead, Miami. I am Peter Short. Joining me in the booth here tonight is Cameron Rich. And Cameron, what a racetrack to begin your hunt for the championship at. Tell us a little bit about Bristol.
Yeah, I was just thinking exactly that, Peter. This is really a track known for a lot of things, and some of those things are bumping and banging, close racing, and definitely big wrecks. So I think if you're going to start a playoff system out at a track, Bristol is probably the one to do it. We're going to see a lot of bumping and banging tonight. The stakes are higher than normal, so all these drivers are going to want to come out here and make something happen and get their playoffs off to a good start.
Yeah, and there you see the standings. And Jared Bogart, he's got a little bit of an advantage with a few extra bonus points. And not quite sure about the math there, Mr. Producer, but Jared Bogart, he's on 3,015 points, not 3,150 there. Will Worsler is second, Mitch Brown third, Evan Black fourth. But Evan Black, of course, won't be here because he's decided to leave the league. So that's going to be interesting to see that. That's kind of already one driver who will not be making it to the next round. We pretty much know that. But all the other drivers pretty much in play for the battle for the round of 8. And this round of 12 features 3 very unique racetracks here at Bristol. Next week, we got Canadian Tire Motorsports Park turning left and right on the road course, formerly known as Mosport. And then the 21st round of the season sees us go to Las Vegas, where we will find out who of the 8 drivers going into the next round will be. But Cameron, it's going to be a very exciting race here tonight. We saw an absolute fantastic race here earlier this season in the Cup Series side of things, where it was a side-by-side finish between Will Worsler and Jared Bogart at the line in the SMS Cup Series. But here, Sam Maxwell Customs Truck Series always putting on a good show. And here tonight, Cameron, I am expecting a absolute doozy.
Absolutely, and I think you just brought it up yourself. This first round of the playoffs is probably the most difficult one, just looking at the schedule right now. You've got Bristol, of course, where we're at tonight, Canadian Tire, and Vegas, which is in its own right a pretty challenging track with these trucks. I know words here. But really, to make it through this round, you're going to have to be good at everything, really, and it's going to be a very tough round for all of these drivers to try to make something happen. And it really, I think surviving tonight is going to be what's paramount on most of these drivers' minds. Yeah,
and to survive at Bristol Motor Speedway, the first thing you must do is qualify up near the front. A good qualifying position is always paramount when you come to Bristol Motor Speedway. Tonight's race, 125 laps. Just over 62 miles. It's not that long of a race, Cameron. It's one of the shorter ones on the schedule. So getting a good qualifying time is paramount. And you look at the practice times over there on the board. Keep an eye on those blue names. Those blue names are the drivers who are in the round of 12 and are vying to get into the round of 8. So you kind of expect to see those blue names up near the top. I know a lot of those drivers have been working on this race all week long, and one driver I already mentioned earlier, that's Will Worsler in the number 29 machine. He got the win here in the SMS Cup Series earlier this year, trying to do the Bristol double here tonight with the Sam Maxwell Customs trucks. Pete Baskin sitting second in practice. He's not one of those top 12. But Kelsey Rogers in third, Brian Yazek fourth, Mitch Brown in fifth, Bogart in sixth. And then we got Alan Young, Tyler Selville, Jonathan Holstein, and Alex Giese rounding out your top 10 here in practice. So, a couple of blue names there up at the top, but not every driver likes racing at Bristol, Cameron. It's kind of a unique racetrack here in the iRacing service because the high line is effectively the fastest way around this joint, which makes it fairly difficult to pass. But that also just adds to the fact that you need a good qualifying lap time. And Cameron, you like racing Bristol? I know this is one of the racetracks that it's kind of changed over the years. I used to love coming to Bristol. And then, once it changed, it became variably banged. I'm not as big of a fan of it anymore just because it's so frustrating as a driver to try and make a pass here.
Yeah, I think what you said there, Peter, frustration is really the key to this racetrack now because, like you said, variably linked from the bottom to the top. You're going to see these drivers fighting for the top side of the racetrack, and that can really put you in a bad position where you're trying to shoot your truck up in between someone else and somebody in front and behind. So we have seen wrecks like that, of course, back in a few months ago when the Cup Series came here. Actually, it was several months ago, but definitely a very, very frustrating track as a driver. Like you said, I was more of a fan of this to drive when it was just normally banked, just a bull ring short track where you had to run the bottom and you could kind of boot people out of the way. You can't really do that now because you push somebody in the corner and it really just shoots them forward.
Yep, and it's definitely a tricky track. And here's the number 3, Pete Baskins, going to the racetrack. You saw him clip the outside wall there. And yeah, that is going to invalidate this lap time. So he's decided to come over, pull over, head back to pit road, and restart. Here's the number 66 out there on the track right now. This is Edward Bray. He's already, looks like he's got one of his qualifying laps, and he's going to qualify in the middle here. And Cameron, that middle line, we said you're going to fight for the top of the race, but the middle line actually works pretty decent here in qualifying. We'll see which kind of strategy is going to prevail, the high line or the low line. As you see, Edward Bray currently slots into second on the speed charts. Jared Haggerty in the number 6 machine, one of those blue names over there in the round of 12. He's currently sitting atop the leaderboard, and that is something that we're going to see a lot of tonight. If you're not able to see the left-hand side of the screen, well, look for those yellow banners on those trucks here tonight. That also indicates the drivers who are in the playoffs trying to get into the round of 8. There's another one. That's the number 41 of Tim Knott. And I gotta say, the yellow complements that race truck quite nicely. Cameron, you and I know sometimes you get a banner like this for the playoffs and it just does not agree with your color scheme, but it definitely has worked with that number 41. There's number 17. That is Richard Stallings out there. Looks like he's going to take time. But Cameron, what are you seeing out there on the racetrack right now? What line seems to be fastest here in qualifying?
Well, right now it seems like the middle to high groove is kind of the fastest line, and I was going to actually kind of bring this up. We always say that Brian Yazik goes to the top of the charts with a 15.190, so just about a tenth and a half faster than anyone else at the moment. So a good lap for that driver. He was pretty quick in practice as well, so we'll see what he can do. But one of the things that iRacing did a few builds ago, actually, it's been a while now, the dynamic track has probably been the best thing to happen to this racetrack because it actually allows the drivers to use the bottom side once the tires wear out. So I think that's going to make for a better race tonight. You're not going to see too much wall riding as the tires wear off. You're going to see it as the tires are fresh and new. You're going to see all the drivers want to go up there and get up next to that wall and everything, but as the tires wear off, definitely going to move the groove down a little bit.
And here's one driver that we wanted to keep an eye on. That's the number 29, Will Worcester. And you look at the left side of your screen, he has gone to second in the speed charts, trying to see if he can pick it up on his second lap. Doesn't look like he will. A little bit of drifting there. Formula drift is not the name of the game here tonight, but nonetheless, Will Worcester sits second on the board. There's the number 24, Alan Young, in that machine, taking time. And Cameron, I saw something very interesting. I went back and actually watched the lap time that Brian Yazik laid down, and he actually ran kind of the second groove, not on the very bottom of the racetrack, as that number 24 smacks the wall there coming out of turn number 2. But Will decided to run right up on the top. So you see that 2 lap times up at the top, separated by 4 1,000ths of a second, running completely different lines around this joint. And you said it, the dynamic track, it varies the track temperature running on different grooves. So if everyone's running the top, it's going to make the hot a little bit warmer than the bottom, and you're going to see drivers migrate down to the bottom to try and get that cooler racetrack for a little bit additional grip. And definitely it's going to make things interesting as this race wears on. I know earlier this year in the SMS Cup Series here in the ASRS Series, we had not quite a green-white checker. It was before iRacing added the green-white checker, but it was a few-lap shootout. And the number 29, Will Worcester, decided to come down pit road, take 4 fresh tires, and he actually was able to blast his way up through the field quite impressively on those tires. So tires do matter here at Bristol Motor Speedway. sometimes you can just kind of get boxed in, nowhere to go on a restart, and not make up too much ground. But Will Worcester definitely proved to us earlier this year, that he knows how to get around this joint, and fresh tires can matter. Speaking of fast tires, though, there's the 00. Jared Bogart, he's gone to 5th place on the board. Here's the 35 of Kelsey Rogers, and Kelsey was fast in practice. We'll see what he can do here, and he lays down a 15.355 or 356 there on the left side of your screen. Currently sitting 7th. There's the number 31 Jimmy Mckee out there in that all black Chevy, and Jimmy, he wasn't able to make the playoffs, but he's had some spectacular runs here in the ASRS Sam Maxwell Customs Truck Series recently, and he's out there trying to see if he can lay down a good time here in the qualifying session. Currently 17th on the board after his first lap with a 15.478. See if he can pick it up on lap number 2. And Cameron, this racetrack, I've always raced well at Bristol Motor Speedway, even in the current configuration, but qualifying just can be sometimes very, very tricky.
Absolutely, and really it is a tough track to qualify at because you want to run up next to that wall where it's banked the most. Of course, that's just kind of common sense. But of course, on iRacing, you cannot hit the wall in any sense of the word whatsoever. You get a tiny little 0x and it disqualifies your lap. So it really kind of, for me, it gives me a little bit of anxiety qualifying here because you want to get you want to start up near as front to the as close to the front as you can, and definitely in the top 22 to get on the front stretch pit stall side of the track. But we have seen that the bottom can work in qualifying. Of course, your current pole star Brian Yazek did run more or less the bottom of the racetrack. So I think there is several schools of thought to qualifying here. I've never been able to do it myself, like you kind of said, but it is quite tricky.
And the track has gone relatively quiet. Cody Spiker is out there in the number 48 machine. At least he was. But at least the track has now gone quiet. So now I think would be a good time to take a look at the penalty report from the last race, if we can dial that up. Of course, the last race at Michigan International Speedway was a fantastic race with Jared Mogard getting the W. And there you can see the penalty report from that race. You can see a couple of level 1 strikes for these drivers, and really it's a strike system that we have here. A certain level of strikes leads to certain levels of penalties, and so on and so forth. But the good news is no drivers will be sitting out from tonight's race. A certain number of penalties, a certain number of strikes does force you to sit out a race. And here we are entering the playoffs, and none of the playoff drivers, I can tell you that much, want to receive strikes here tonight, especially at Bristol Motor Speedway. That might force them to sit out a race. And luckily, all of them will be featured here tonight around this half-mile bullring, the last great Coliseum. Thunder Valley, whatever you want to call this half-mile racetrack. It's always a racetrack that every NASCAR fan enjoys watching or going to. Unfortunately, those crowd numbers haven't been as good as they were back in the late 90s, early 2000s as of late, but nonetheless, this racetrack always puts on a good show with a lot of action. We have about 1 minute and 20 seconds left here in qualifying. And Cameron, you got a pick for tonight's race?
I think that 29 of Will Worcester looks pretty strong. I have to say, of course, he is in the playoff hunt. He's going to want to come out here and do the best he can. And, of course, he is seated second in the playoffs, or 6 points behind Jared Mogard. A couple of spots ahead of him on the track right now. Mogard currently in 5th. So Will is doing everything he needs to do at the current moment to try to do just that. So I think that 29 is going to be pretty strong here.
Yeah, and I am getting word that there might be a little bit of some graphical issues with the blue names on the left-hand side of the screen. Not quite sure if we'll be able to get that sorted as this race goes on. But nonetheless, Jared Mogard sitting in the 5th position. He is definitely in the hunt for the championship. He is the points leader coming into tonight's race. And Jared Mogard, I think that Mogard has a good shot at winning this race. I wouldn't be at all surprised. Bogart has some additional. He basically needs to win one of these early races because he's going to be out, I believe, next week at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. So that's some additional motivation for Mogard to go out there, get this checkered flag tonight. We saw him just a quarter of a lap away from winning in the SMS Cup Series earlier this year. So I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the 00 go to victory lane here tonight, as all the cars are now gridding on the racetrack. So, Cameron, let's see what we can do here.
Just a quick note, from the earlier Cup Series race that we had back in, I believe it was January or so, Brian Yazik actually won the pole for that race, and Will Wursler was the winner for the race itself. So, you know, both of those drivers are on the front row tonight. Definitely, they know how to get around this joint pretty well.
That is definitely the case, and Brian Yazik's sitting on the pole. Will Wursler outside of him. That's row number 1. Row number is the number 24 of Alan Young and the number 9 of Brandon Stokes. Jared Mogard and Mitch Brown make up row number 3. Kelsey Rogers, Alex Giese right behind them. So we'll see if we can allow the producer to catch up. We're fighting through a few things. Our producer based out of southern Florida, and that part of Florida is getting hit pretty good with storms right now. Jared Haggerty and Jonathan Holstein make up row number 5. And Cameron, take away 11th through 20th.
Yeah, starting 11th, we have the number 41 of Tim Knott. He's a playoff driver, and next to him, the 28 of Troy Hape. Ed Bray rolls off in the 13th position. Lucky 13, hopefully not going to come true tonight. Of course, by lucky, we mean unlucky, but start next to him, another playoff driver, number 11, Tyler Seville. Josh Walker rolls off in 15th, and 16th is Jason Stewart, another playoff driver. Cody Spiker and Jimmy Mckee comprise the 9th row of the grid, and Jack Wells and Jim Foos round out the top 20.
Starting in the 21st position will be the number 17 of Richard Stallings, and Steve Buhala in the 43 alongside him. Pete Baskins and Chris Titus make up row 12. Pete Baskins is looking to get towards the front after being so high up the table in the practice charts. 25th will be Brad Cross, alongside him Dylan Hickey in the number 2. Nick Curling, Chris Lane, Lee Staples, and Richard Fletcher round out your 30-truck field here for the start of tonight's feature race here at Bristol Motor Speedway. It should be a lot of fun, Cameron, and the pace car lights are already off, so we're going to get set to go green flag racing here in just a second. Well, I guess pace car is going to go for one more lap around this joint. I was a bit surprised by that. I saw the pace car light off, and I was like, typically we get 2 laps around a short track like this, and indeed we do. But keep an eye on those yellow bannered trucks here tonight, also with the yellow spoilers. Keep an eye on those trucks. Those are your playoff drivers. You see Will Wursler, that number 29. He has the best position on the start out of the 12, battling for the championship here tonight in the Sam Maxwell Customs Truck Series at Bristol Motor Speedway. Pace car is going to dive down here. Hard left. Just barely missed the cone. And put the race in the hands of the number 55 HPP Simulations Toyota Tundra. And the green flag is in the air here at Bristol Motor Speedway. Yazik leads here going off into turn number 1. He got a little bit of a slow start. Looks like Wursler might have just jumped him a little bit. And Wursler checked up as to not beat the 55 to the line. And Yazik has taken the lead. Wursler in second, Alan Young in third. Mogard and Stokes, the first side-by-side battle. That will be for the 4th position. Oh, we have a car exhibiting some connection issues right up there at the front. That's the number 24 of Alan Young. That's not where you want to be with connection issues at this point in the race.
Yeah, you see most of these drivers are migrating to the top. First driver on the bottom is that 00 Jared Mogard. He's really the only truck trying the bottom right now. And he has to be careful about that, because if he stays down there too long, he's going to burn his tires off. But he moves up right in front of the number 51, Mitch Brown, comfortably in the 5th position right now. Doesn't really need to take it too hard right now. Just needs to kind of ride there and kind of let the tires wear off and maybe make his move later on in the race. Further on back in the field, laps around the 16th position. Big side-by-side battle here, a couple rows deep. Actually, looks like most of the field right there, side-by-side. Looks like pace laps, but just a little bit quicker right now. You can see about a 4 or 5 deep of side-by-side here. Turns 3 and 4 right now. Up at the front, not missing much. 55, Brian Yazik still out in front of Will Worsler by a couple tenths right now. Looks like these drivers just kind of settling in, but you see Jared Bogart now going back to the bottom of the racetrack, trying to get around the number 9 of Brandon Stokes. Can't make the move. It's going to be a hard one to make, Peter.
Yeah, and this goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's just a little bit frustrating as a driver. Even if you think you're the faster race truck out there, you can just keep trying to make that move on the inside line. There's just not enough grip down there just yet. Here comes Brandon Stokes trying to go to the inside of Alan Young, side by side for the 3rd position. Young's going to stick around the high side and watch Bogart here. Remember, he's been trying to get around that number 9 machine on the low side. He's going to fill that door. Almost contact coming out of turn number 2 between the 9 and the 24. But now Bogart is going to get to the outside of Brandon Stokes. And Bogart here is going to make the pass coming out of turn number 4. So moving Bogart up to 4th. Our playoff drivers are currently sitting 2nd, 3rd, and 4th on the racetrack, with Mitch Brown not too far behind, sitting in 6th.
And Bogart's not done yet. He wants to get around the 24 of Alan Young, diving him back down to the bottom of the racetrack. Can't make that move, but I can tell you, Peter, as a driver, seeing that top side open when you're trying to get around somebody is probably the best feeling as a driver here at Bristol. But we have a caution out on the racetrack.
Chris Lane has gone around on the front stretch in the number 01 machine. He's currently sitting on pit road. We'll have to go back and see if we can see what happened here on the 3Y TV replay here. I think it happened on the front stretch here coming out of turn number 4. Maybe a little bit of contact there with Steve Buhala. Not quite sure if anyone was to blame there. I think that was just the track, just kind of the banking on the bottom just kind of going away. See what we can see here on board with that number 01 machine, trying to speed up so we don't miss any kind of pit stops. But maybe, well, I don't know. Was there contact there, Cameron? If there was, it wasn't very much.
I don't necessarily think so, but we're going to see some pit stops here pretty early on the going, 12 laps in. Definitely, this is the realm of where you need tires. You kind of brought it up in pre-race, Peter. Tires definitely are quite important here. You wouldn't think about it because it's such a small track and it is a concrete surface, but really the tires do make a huge difference here, so I expect to see most of the drivers take 4 tires. A big mess there off pit road. Typically see that here, but Brian Yazik, first driver off, followed by Will Worsler and Jared Bogart. So he was able to get around the 24 of Alan Young. Looks like he had a bit of issues on his stop, lost a couple positions, so not a good stop for him. But either way, top 3 looking pretty good right now.
Absolutely so, and this is one of the split pit roads. So you'll see half of the field pit on the front stretch, and pretty much the last half of the field pit on the back stretch, which sometimes confusing as a driver. I know it's something you have to be mindful of. There you see Steve Buhala in the number 43. He's going to come around this time. But Pete Baskins in the number 3 machine, he's actually staying out on the racetrack as of right now. Remember, I mentioned there as we were going through the grid that he was very high up the speed chart in practice, but when it came to qualifying, maybe he just didn't get a good lap in or something, and he started near the back of the field. But nonetheless, he's decided to stay out here on those 12-lap old tires to get that truck up to the front, get some track position. As you see Buhala sitting on pit road, but pace car lights are off. Cameron, we're getting set to go back to green. Enjoy the quickie yellows while we still can.
Absolutely, a lot different than other tracks like Pocono or the bigger tracks like that where cautions seem to take forever. So nice little change of pace here. These cautions are going to go by pretty quickly, and this race will go by quickly too if we can get some green flag laps in. The laps go by in 15 seconds.
It does look like Steve Buhala actually did stay on pit road a little bit too long. I think he has no, he hasn't fallen one lap down. He's on the same lap as everyone else. Live timing and scoring just taking a little bit of time to update. But nonetheless, pace car is on pit road. Green flag back in the air. Pete Baskins leads us back to green. We'll see how those older tires fare against all these fresh tires. He's got the 55 up to his top side. And here we go. 3 wide up at the front. Baskins already starting to sink through this field. Number 24 of Alan Young to his outside. Here comes the number 9 of Brandon Stokes. As we ride on board with this number 3 machine, you can just see all these trucks around him like an angry swarm of bees on fresh tires, just gobbling them up.
Yeah, and that's only 12 laps right there, so just imagine how worse it would be if there was 20, 30 laps on the tires. Ooh, loose out of turn number 4, but keeps it on the apron, sideways, saves it though. That's such a helpless feeling as a driver, Peter. You cannot do anything about that. You cannot overcome the difference in tires. You just have to let it happen. But up here at the front, see the 51 of Mitch Brown trying to get around Alan Young on that inside line. We've seen the trials and tribulations of people doing that this race already. Mitch Brown's going to have a tough time trying to get around him, but I've seen it work a few times. See if he can make it work himself.
And Jared Bogart has slotted into the second position after that restart. He started on the high side. Now Bogart's now going for the race lead. They're side by side coming out of turn number 2. There they are. Bogart's still hugging that inside line. We've seen him try this race to use that low line to no avail. It seems like that high line's just a little bit too strong right now. But he's trying to get around that 55, and here comes Will Worsler. Worsler's going to try and fill that spot. We've seen Worsler actually lost that position to Bogart on that restart because he started on the inside line behind the number 3. But Worsler now just using that high line, just being patient. Yazik's kind of, a little bit of contact between the 29 and this 00 there. Coming out of the corner, they just kind of banged fenders a little bit. But I think Worsler's going to clear Bogart. I thought he had cleared Bogart, but Bogart dives back off into number 1 and 2. And they're still both stuck behind the 55 of Brian Yazik.
And you can already see the intensity of the championship ramping up right here. These are the top 2 in points right now. Will Worsler and Jared Bogart, of course, in reverse order of that.
Contact, the 24, the 51. Those are both championship contenders right behind this 4-car breakaway. There's an absolute log jam here. There was definitely contact between the 51 and the 24. We'll go back and see this on the replay, and it all happened in turn number 1. The 51 on the inside, and a little bit of contact on the straightaway. Fantastic save by both of those drivers to keep the race clean and green, but to keep those trucks out of the wall and without some significant damage. But they have lost a little bit of track position, but here comes Alan Young trying to get around the 6, and here comes Bogart trying to get around the 55 once again.
Yeah, and that was a very good piece of driving from Alan Young, because if that happened about 2 seconds later, that would have been the end of his race and very likely other people's as well, because that truck would have hit the inside wall and probably bounced off into traffic and would have been a huge mess. But like you said, battle for the lead here. Jared Bogart is not letting go on that inside line. He's given it a good run down there. Cannot get around the 55 just yet, but he has given it a good college try. I think Will Worsler probably wants to get himself right up next to that 00, so he can't slot in front of him. Probably see it right here, very close there, but good racing up here at the front for these top 3, Yazik, Bogart, and Worsler. But don't look now, Brandon Stokes is right there looking at this battle just off screen right now, so he's got to be loving what he's seeing. He's reeling himself in. Ooh, pretty loose for the 29 down the front shade. That rear end was dog walking. Able to save it though. Yeah,
that number 29 was really loose there, and I noticed that from a couple of drivers in practice. It looked like after they got a couple laps on their tires, the trucks definitely started to loosen up. And if I'm the 00 of Jared Bogart, I'm just going to keep running down there on the inside line, but you got to think about when will those tires start to give up on that inside line. It seems like, I know from my experience here at Bristol Motor Speedway, that inside line, you can run it like Bogart's running it consistently lap after lap for about 10 or 12 laps, but over the run, that seems like that high line tends to become the more dominant line. Bogart here trying to prove me wrong. He's been very, very fast all year, and he's proven me wrong more than once here as the Sam Maxwell Customs Truck Series continues on. And just running right down there on the bottom. And I'm starting to think, Cameron, there is a possibility we'll see a side-by-side finish for a second time this year at Bristol Motor Speedway.
Yeah, but don't look now. The number 17, Richard Stallings, going a lap down right there. And it's so hard because there's really nowhere to go. Excuse me, that's the 47, not the 17. That's Richard Fletcher. Got kind of ADHD numbers right there, but really as a lap truck, there's really not a clear-cut place to go. You can go to the bottom, but of course that's where Bogart is. You can go to the top. Of course that's where most everyone else is, so just pretty hard, but they all get around it pretty nicely. This top 4 is actually separated from the rest of the field by about 3 seconds right now, from Brandon Stokes back to Jared Haggerty in 5th place. So a pretty big gap here early on.
Yeah, and of course that gap was created when the 51 and the 24 had their coming together in turn number 1. But don't look now, but Jared Bogart is still trying that inside line. He lost track position when they caught the 47 of Richard Fletcher, but he's down there once again trying everything he can. And it's very, very impressive how Bogart is rolling the center of these corners. It seems like he's just getting through the middle of the corner. So, well, we have a caution. One truck is around in turn number 1 and 2. That's Alex Giese in the 77, I do believe, who has potentially gone around. There's also another truck on pit road. We'll have to see who that is. We'll go back and see if we can see what happened here on this replay. Potentially with the number 77 truck. Oh, there's the number 2. That's Dylan Hickey. And there's the number 77 off the racetrack. Well, let's see what happens here. 77 going down the backstretch. Now going into turn number 3 and 4. Oh, looks like he just got a little bit loose, got a little bit sideways, and oh my goodness, Cameron, everyone did such a fantastic job of avoiding that number 77 truck. I don't know how that wasn't a bigger pileup, but everyone doing a fantastic job of avoiding. Giese's going to be able to get that truck back to pit lane without a scratch on it. Might have a caution to his name, which is not something he wants because that will earn him a strike here in the Sam Maxwell Customs Truck Series. But everyone's on pit road, including your race leader, Brian Yazek.
Yeah, I expect to see most of these drivers take 4 tires again, and ooh, bit of a close call there off pit road. Have one truck to stay out right now. Mitch Brown, the 51. We'll see if he actually decides to stay on the racetrack. I can't imagine he is going to, but of course these drivers have proved me wrong before, so he knows how the truck's handling better than I do. We've already seen how important tires are when somebody stayed out a little bit earlier with 12 laps on the tires, and I think Mitch Brown. Well, actually, you see right there, he comes down pit road. So as we were talking about that, probably just elects to lead a lap. He is in the championship hunt, so every point does count.
Yeah, and Cameron, let me tell you what, the driver who stayed out under that last caution, Pete Baskins in the number 3 machine, he was running in the 20th position at the time of that caution. And that was really the difference of 12 lap tires. I mean, that's incredible. You fall all the way from the lead to 20th in just a matter of about 18 laps or so. So nonetheless, that, like you said, it was a longer green flag run that we had there. We've made it to lap number 39, so everyone coming down to take those 4 fresh tires. And it will still be the 55 of Brian Yazek up at the front. And Jared Bogart sitting in the 2nd position, just sniffing the lead lap after lap. Now, Cameron, it's going to be interesting to see here. Bogart, I think, will be lining up at the outside for this restart. I mean, only time will tell whether or not the 55, if he can claim to be on the outside line. I haven't seen that happen so far this year in the Sam Maxwell Customs Truck Series. So I think the 55 Yazek will be on the inside, 00 on the high side. But it could be an interesting race off into turn number 1 if Bogart gets to hold on to that high line for this restart.
Yeah, and for Will Worsler, he's going to be on the inside, no doubt about it. So he's going to have to try to get in front of the number 9 of Brandon Stokes. Of course, he was running in front of him before the caution. So it's going to be pretty imperative for him to get in front of that 9 and not lose more positions or more track position. But we are going to be going green here in just a moment, about really 10 seconds time now.
Yeah, I do want to keep an eye on Mitch Brown. He is one of those championship contending drivers. He, like we said, he stayed out. He led a lap, but now he pitted late. He's mired back in traffic. He's going to restart this race in the 26th position. So keep an eye on the number 51 in the ticker up the top of the screen as pace car is off. And we're back to green flag racing here at Bristol Motor Speedway. The 55 of Yazek got a fantastic restart, so that takes away any opportunity for Bogart to make a move off into turn number 1. And keep an eye on that number 29, Will Worsler. He got a good restart this time. And here comes Brandon Stokes, that number 9 machine, having a fantastic showing tonight. Pretty much been in the top 5 since the start of the race. And there's 24, Alan Young, trying to battle back from that slideways action in turn number 1 and 2 not too long ago with the 31, and Jimmy Mckee highlighted him in the qualifying session. He did not have a good qualifying lap in that 31 machine, but here he is racing his way up to the front. The 48 there, that's Cody Spiker. He's almost went around in turn number 1 and 2. I say almost because that was an amazing save. We'll go back and see this one on the replay. They're right behind the 31 of Jimmy Mckee. And not quite sure what happened there, Cameron. Maybe a little bit of rear brake bias or something. It didn't look like he got any help.
Yeah, it looks like these trucks are pretty hard to handle. I've seen a couple drivers get sideways, but thankfully they've all been able to save, or most have been able to save it pretty nicely. It's not really something you see at Bristol too typically much, getting sideways in the middle of a pack and not hitting anything. So a great piece of driving by everybody. Here's a bit further back in the pack for on the 21st, 22nd position. Richard Stallings, Jason Stewart side by side. And Jason Stewart, of course. Ooh, big hit for somebody.
That's Dylan Hickey in the number 2 machine, who's hard in the inside wall, now facing backwards on the backstretch. And that's not what Dylan Hickey was looking for tonight. We'll go back and see if we can see this one on the replay. I think Mr. Producer's found his ray gun once again. Wasn't quite featuring on that number 2 machine, but nonetheless, it looks like he just got a little bit loose there coming out of turn number 2 and unfortunately looped it around hard into the inside wall. But if you've been watching us here on 3 Wide TV, let me tell you, our Mr. Producer, Carlos Acosta, he has this ray gun, and he can change the camera and cause the car to spin. I tell you, he does it each and every week at some point. So even though we weren't focusing on Hickey there, he was just in that shot. So I'm going to put that one down onto Carlos Acosta, but nonetheless, your race leaders are on pit road. I'm sure I'm going to get an earful in my ear here in just a minute, as Brian Yazik will win the race off pit road. Bogart coming out second. Brandon Stokes third. Haggerty and Alan Young. But the real story is who's going to stay out here under this caution. Looks like we do have a couple. Edward Bray, one of those. Richard Stallings, he was one of those drivers battling back there. Cody Spiker, he just made a spectacular save. He's going to stay out on the racetrack. Josh Walker as well. Richard Fletcher, Pete Baskins. And interestingly enough, Mitch Brown in the 51 is going to come back down pit road. Remember, he restarted that last restart at pretty much the tail end of the longest line, and he's back on pit road, so he's going to give up any type of track position gain by getting 4 fresh tires here. And Dylan Hickey has taken his number 2 machine to the garage for tonight, as has Chris Titus and Chris Lane.
And one more thing to kind of note, the 29 of Will Worsler stayed on pit road and let everybody by, so I'm assuming he got some sort of speeding penalty or something, because he's now back in the 26th position, definitely way back in the field. Last car in the lead lap just about. He's only got Jason Stewart behind him, so he's really, this stage in the race, 50 laps down, 75 to go, he's really got his work cut out for him.
Yeah, that is a definite heartbreak for that number 29 machine. I know we've seen that at Will Worsler before. He's been able to work his way up through the pack. But as we get close to the halfway mark here at Bristol Motor Speedway, I'm going to go back and watch what happened to that number 29 machine. It's kind of interesting, Cameron, because the number 29, it seemed like he lurched forward a little bit and then came to a stop again. I don't know if there's some kind of hardware issue with his pedals or something, but it seemed like he got going okay out of his pit box about when you'd expect he would, and then all of a sudden that truck ground to a halt and he let everyone by. So interesting occurrence here.
Yeah, definitely, and that is not what you want at this stage in the race. But this is going to be an interesting restart. Top 5 staying out, first car on tires, of course, being that 55 Brian Yazik. Third row on the outside, and he has Jared Bogart and Brandon Stokes behind him. So going to be interesting to see how quickly he can get through the field with all these trucks in front of him on no tires, of course, staying out. Pace car is off, side by side for the lead in the hands of 66 Ed Bray, and green flag out here at Bristol. 53 laps in, and side by side for the lead with him and Richard Stallings. Looks like Brian Yazik's already made it up to the 4th position, now going for 3rd on the 48 of Cody Spiker. See if he can make the move, but actually lost a bit of momentum. Here comes Brandon Stokes on the outside of him. So whatever move Brian Yazik made there, that was not the right one, because he's losing ground now.
Yeah, Yazik now down on the inside line. He's trying to get around Josh Walker in the 0-3. Not quite able to do so. Walker kind of pinching him down there for now. Caution is out. once again here, and we got a big stack up in turn number 4, and that is one of the playoff contenders turned around. The number 42 of Jim Foose in that 42 Menards Toyota Tundra. We'll go back and see what happened here. Had the number 73 of Holstein right behind him, and maybe a little bit of a nudge there. And oh, the number 41, Tim Knott, another championship contender, getting involved. So, yeah, it's not going to be Tim Knott's night as the number 42 and the 41 get together. Bad night to be in the 40s as well. And there, yeah, I think that was just a little nudge there in the center of the corner from that 73. And unfortunately, put that number 42 spinning right round like a top.
Yeah, another driver that was almost involved in that, of course, the 29, Will Morsler, who we were talking about, went to the back of the pack, and he was very close. We're actually going to be on board with him. We're on board with Tim Knott now, actually, and you see right there, nowhere to go. Just boom, right into the side of the 42 of Jim Foose. Nothing he can do. You can't just turn the car down the racetrack. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately, and a lot of damage on that car. So,
riding on board here with the number 1 machine, that would be Jason Stewart. You can see he checks up, and it doesn't look like he hit the wall. Did a good job of putting on the brakes and avoiding that one. He is one of your playoff trucks, and one thing I was going to notice or note right before we went back to Green Flag Racing is how many yellow striped trucks we have at the back of the pack. It was pretty impressive to see. Up near the front, we have Bogart sitting in the 7th position, but then Alan Young sitting 11th, Troy Haight 14th, Will Worsler now 17th, Tyler Saville 20th, Mitch Brown 21st, Jason Stewart 22nd. Of course, Tim Knott and Jim Foose, both of those drivers have the yellow stripes, and of course, the yellow stripe meaning that they're in the hunt for the championship. They're in the final 12 as we enter the playoff system. This is the first race of the playoff system, if you're just now joining us here on 3 Wide TV for tonight's Sam Maxwell Customs Truck Series event. As we are now also about 5 laps away from the halfway mark. You see the number 42, Jim Foose there, rolling on the left side of your screen there just for a brief moment. He's going to stay on the lead lap here, trying to get as much damage as he can fixed on that truck. But the pace car light's still on around this joint. Now, in fact, the field is pretty much ready to go, but iRacing says, hey, not so fast. Another couple laps here.
And one thing to kind of note, to kind of expand on what you said, Peter, a lot of non-yellow stripe trucks near the front. Only one driver in the top 10 is actually a playoff driver. That's the 00 Jared Bogart. So I'm pretty sure he's happy with that.
So, yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see that play out here over the next couple laps.
Want to correct myself. Jared Haggerty, also a playoff driver, but I don't see the yellow stripe on his truck, but he is indeed in the playoffs, so my mistake there. But either way, there is only one yellow stripe truck in the top 10. So actually, there's a bit of damage on that 00 right now. A lot of right front damage. I'm not sure if that's going to really hurt him too incredibly much. That truck has been extremely fast, so I think he'll be just okay from that.
Yeah, Kelsey Rogers, one of those drivers also in the playoffs. He is just outside the top 10 in the 13th position, but pace car lights are off. We're going to get set to go back to Green Flag Racing here. Just 3 laps away from the halfway mark. Edward Bray will lead us back to Green Flag. He's hard on the loud pedal, gets a good restart, skips away from the field, and Richard Stallings. But here comes that number 17 going off into turn number 1 and 2. The 66 gets good drive on the inside line. Edward Bray once again leads here at Bristol, but Richard Stallings smells the race lead. And look at Cody Spiker there in that red number 48 machine. We saw him almost spinning, and look at the number 55, Brian Yazik underneath him. Yazik is on fresher tires than these 3 trucks in front of him. Yazik trying to get that 3rd position from Spiker here early on in this run, as we are now halfway in this race.
Yeah, and those 2 trucks on the bottom, Yazik and Bogart, need to be very careful right now. Of course, they are the ones with the fresher tires up front, as well as the number 9 of Brandon Stokes, who's actually getting around the 00 of Bogart right now. He's on that outside line for group around this racetrack, but he is kind of stuck behind Josh Walker right now, so there's nowhere for him to go. He cannot push the issue because he actually is pushing the issue into turn number 3 sideways, pushes the 03 out of the way, and I think we're going to get a caution. Yes, we are. So, commentators curse much?
Yeah, and unfortunately, one driver involved in the playoffs who got a decent chunk of damages, the number 24 of Alan Young. We'll see this on the replay. Just kind of pushed the 03 off into turn number 3, and that 03 came down the racetrack. There was the number 24 machine in Troy 8, and the number 28 also went around. So tough break for Troy Haight. He's not one of the playoff drivers, but nonetheless getting involved, running on board with the number 24 machine here. And you just see this all happen right in front of Alan Young, going off into turn 3 and 4 here in just about half a lap from now. You can see Brandon Stokes was right on the back bumper of that 03 machine, and there was the initial contact, and 03 tried everything he could to save it, but unfortunately for Josh Walker, just kind of ran out of track space, and there was the number 24, and there's the number 28, Troy Haight. But a whole bunch of leaders are currently on pit road. Now, this is exactly what those drivers who stayed out of Cody Spiker and Edward Bray, well, I was expecting them to come down pit road, but they have thought different. They have actually stayed out on the racetrack, so that's interesting to see. But nonetheless, Brian Yazik in the number 55 will win the race off pit road once again. And he is going to be one of the top trucks once we go back to green flag racing, because a lot of the field elected to come down pit road. There's Yazik in the top right corner of your screen in that bright blue and yellow HPPsimulations.com Toyota Tundra. And there's the 66 of Edward Bray, still leading this race just past the halfway mark. We've had a couple of cautions here tonight, as to be expected when you come to Bristol Motor Speedway, but nothing, I would say, Cameron, that was too crazy here around this joint.
No, not really, and really it's kind of interesting. We are seeing two kind of schools of thought here up at the front. Of course, the top 4 staying out on the racetrack and first car on tires. Once again, 55 Brian Yazik. It seems like a lot of drivers are kind of prioritizing track position over tires, and I'm not sure what the right answer is, but I would say that we've kind of seen both work. We've seen staying out ahead of the mess that causes, or the mess that gets caused further on the back is a good idea, but of course, we've also seen tires work as well. So, this is a very interesting race. I'm not sure what we're going to see later on, of course, being past halfway now.
Yep, laps will wind down very quickly, especially if we get a green flag run. A couple of drivers in this field have made some power moves to try and get that track position, like Jimmy Mckee, Cody Spiker, and Edward Bray up at the front. So definitely pretty interesting to see some different strategies out there. Also, Richard Stallings electing to stay out there in that number 17 machine. But first truck on fresh tires will be the number 55 of Brian Yazik, and the 00 of Jared Mogard to his outside, as we now have the 1 to green signal. Pace car lights are off. We'll get set to go back to green flag racing. Around this half-mile joint is a little bit of connection issues there out of Cody Spiker's number 48 truck up there. Bright red truck. Don't think you can miss Cody Spiker from a mile away. Kind of unique. No other bright red trucks out there up near the front. Alex Giese would be probably the most similar truck to that number 48 machine. But the pace car now headed down pit road. Race once again in the hands of Edward Bray here for this restart. And he gets a pretty good restart down there on the bottom. Might have had a little bit of wheel spin there, shifting up through the gears, because here comes Cody Spiker to his outside through turn number 1 and 2. Spiker clipping the wall, throwing sparks up at the front as they're side by side for the race lead. And here comes Bogart on the inside. Bogart trying to move up positions. Spiker gets the race leader, 3 wide now for the second position. We're still 3 wide. A little bit further back, and look at Jared Bogart charging up through the field. We're still 3 wide. This is a Hornet. Oh, contact! Will Worcster's gone around! And contact there with the number 6 of Jared Haggerty, one of your other championship contenders, and Brian Yazik in the number 55, who's been the fastest truck, started on the pole, but that front end now smashed in. Here, let's go back and see this one on the replay, Cameron. It was chaos.
Absolutely. You saw here 3 wide, just not going to work. Ed Bray got turned around there. And you see Yazik involved, Will Worsler involved, Haggerty, hard hit for him. That truck's going to be very heavily damaged. And, you know, I think we were talking about this, Peter. This is just something that can happen when you have trucks on fresh tires behind trucks on new tires. There's just not much room on this racetrack. And right there, off turn number 2, saw the culmination of everything. Jared Haggerty in the inside wall. Actually, not as hard as I thought it would be, but that's still going to be quite a bit of damage on that truck.
Yeah, and you know, I'm gonna say for Brian Yazik, man, there was some net code involved in that accident. It wasn't all on him. There was a little bit of space between those two trucks, and gotta say, you know, those drivers out there, I think they were being patient. Those drivers on fresh tires. I mean, it was a scramble, you can see, but I think it just all of a sudden the racetrack just kind of closed up there for Yazik, and unfortunately there was that little bit of contact. And it was on from there. You see that little bit of a late hit. Couldn't quite see which driver that was. It was a 26, Lee Staples, getting into the 55 there right at the end of that accident. We see a lot of trucks on pit road trying to get damage repaired. Unfortunately for Yazik, he looks like his night might be done. Let's see if we can dial up one of these drivers. We'll see who our producer can throw in here. And we'll see, see who he brings in. There's a lot of good names up near the front that he could throw us for a curveball. Looks like we haven't been able to drag someone up here just yet. So Cameron, good race around this joint. Got 50 laps to go this time by. And I think we have caught up with driver of the number 29 machine, Will Worsler. And Will, involved in that accident right there, been back in the pack after what was a very strange happening on pit road. Seems like your car just all of a sudden stopped. You got back in the pack to be working your way forward. But how much damage is on that number 29 machine? And what happened on pit road about 20 laps ago?
I went down pit road and was making some changes, trying to decide how much fuel to take, so on and so forth, and went 5 miles an hour too fast and tried to slow down, but didn't do it in time. So I got a pit road spin penalty, and I just sat there until everybody went by. I don't really know how much damage I've got. I'm just going to have to see if I've lost any speed on this run, and hopefully it'll wait until I can, till there's another caution and I can pit.
Well, hopefully you do have some speed out there in that number 29 machine. Pace car lights are off. We'll let you get back to it. Best of luck here in the closing stages of tonight's race.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, that is driver of the number 29, Will Worsler, of course, owner of Will Worsler Racing in this Impossible Racing League that we commentate here on 3 Wide TV. Always cool to talk to Will. Of course, he's got a pretty big job at hand here for this restart. He's going to restart on the inside of row number 3. And there's Cody Spiker. Remember, both Cody Spiker and the number 31, Jimmy Mckee, on old tires. The 00 Bogart on much fresher tires. As we're back to green flag racing here. The 48 got a good restart, but not a great restart. As the number 31 of Jimmy Mckee is going to try and get around the outside. Not able to do so just yet, but here comes Mckee diving down to the inside. We're side by side for the race lead with 2 trucks on older tires. And there's the 00 of Jared Bogart.
Yeah, Richard Stallings putting his nose in there as well, getting on the outside of 31 Jimmy Mckee. Ooh, some connection issues there. That's not what you want right here. Very bad situation right there, but 3 wide for the lead, almost between Spiker, Mckee, and Bogart. Bogart thinks better of it, says, no, I'm not going to put myself in that position right now. I saw what happened just a few laps ago, but Jimmy Mckee and Spiker still going at it. Mckee has been making that inside line work pretty well. He might be able to get the move done here on the turns 3 and 4 end of the speedway, but not quite yet. But I believe he did lead that lap by 5 1/1000ths over Spiker. And if you're Jared Bogart, this is kind of a frustrating place to be in. Ooh, some contact. Will Worsler sideways out of turn number 2, saves it, gets on the apron. He's going to lose a couple spots, but I think that was a product of the 48 getting into the wall and kind of causing a bit of a stack up. So we're still side by side, 2 rows deep. First car that is not side by side, just the 30 of Brad Cross right there. Haven't talked about him too much tonight, but he's having a good run up in the 5th position. Has been up there pretty much most of the night, doing a good job up here tonight. Of course, the winner at Eldora, so not not a similar racetrack, it's a similar shape, but that doesn't really mean much at all, and we're 3 wide once again. Ooh, as we're talking about him, Brad Cross sideways. See, ooh, still sideways out of turn 4, and ooh, around he goes. Plenty of Troy Hayden. Ooh, they're going back on the racetrack. Brandon Stokes involved. And Peter, wow, that was quite a mess right there. Number 9, Brandon Stokes, upside down on his lid, and it's gonna be night over for him, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and the Brad Cross just got a little bit loose. Troy Hayden had nowhere to go. You can see that truck had its brakes locked, but it was headed back up the racetrack with that momentum obtained from contact with the number 28 machine, and unfortunately for the number 9 machine, had absolutely nowhere to go. Ends up on his lid. That's not how you want to end up around this joint. You can see this on board. There's that contact for the number 28. Just tried to keep it woed down. Oof. On board with the number 9 on the gyro cam. Actually, no, that's Brad Cross with the gyro cam there. So 2 cars going upside down. Now we're going to go on board with the number 9 machine. See what his perspective is in this madness. And he doesn't see much of it here, Cameron. And you know, at Bristol Motor Speedway, where you're pretty much looking into the corner everywhere around this joint because it's such a short track with such high banking, it can be really difficult to see an accident happen on the front stretch. You can see he's tucked up behind Tyler Salville. He couldn't see a thing. He could not see that wreck happen in front of him. There was no caution flag out. I'm guessing that they'd kept their momentum up, so iRacing didn't throw the caution flag, and I just don't think he knew what was happening in front of him. You just couldn't see it as we rode on board.
Yeah, and that's another one of our front runners having trouble tonight. Of course, last caution, we saw Brian Yazek get in trouble. He's done. And now Brandon Stokes has taken his car to the garage, so he was up there all night in the top 5, battling with Yazek and company. So really, you know, this is quite it's really not it's not a clean race for most of these front runners up here at the front. So it's quite, you know, I would have to say it's pretty much just being like the old Bristol that we know and love. Yeah,
survival of the, I wouldn't say the fittest, but survival of the luckiest sometimes around this joint. While we have been going back and watching that replay, just want to reset your top 5 for you because it has changed. Jason Stewart in the number 1 machine is actually your race leader. He has stayed out, and alongside him is the 51 of Mitch Brown, also electing to stay out. So we do have some Dirty Bird Sim Racing teammates up there at the front. Jimmy Mckee in the number 31 machine, he came down pit road. He's actually the first truck on 4 fresh tires because he was ahead of Jared Mogard, one of those other drivers who came down to get 4 fresh tires. Cody Spiker is currently 5th, Richard Stallings 6th, Will Worcester, Jonathan Holstein, Pete Baskins, and Nick Curling rounding out your top 10. But I do want to mention, we have a couple of drivers in the top 10. Jason Stewart, Jimmy Mckee, Cody Spiker, Richard Stallings, Pete Baskins, and Nick Curling. Each of those drivers have gained more than 12 positions since the start of the race. So kind of throwing out what I said in in qualifying, that you want a good qualifying spot for this race, because they're proving me wrong being up here at the front, as we do have the one to go here to get back to green flag racing.
Yeah, and really, you do want to start up near the front, but it is quite easy to pass cars here at Bristol. Of course, you know, we've had a couple wrecks here and there to help in that, but of course, you have to get up there and gain the spot. The pace car is off the track right now. Field in the hands of Jason Stewart. Green flag out. Looks like Mitch Brown on the outside got a pretty good restart. We'll see if he can hang tough through 1 and 2 side by side with Jason Stewart. And it looks like he is. I think he's going to have momentum off turn 2. Yes, he does. So give the lead to Mitch Brown. But here comes Jared Bogart. What a move for him. He made it around the outside. Of course, that truck on fresh tires for him. And I think it's going to be a pretty short fight for the lead if he gets side by side with Mitch Brown. And here he comes on the inside line, where we've seen him so strong all night. Not able to make the move just yet, but definitely that is probably the fastest truck left on the racetrack right now. And of course, most of his competition that he was battling with early on this race, getting in some trouble. So I think things looking good for that 00. He's got himself on the outside line now, trying to get himself around. Mitch Brown moves some trouble for the 48. He is on pit road. That's probably going to be an unsafe pit entry penalty too. So I think whatever happened to him is going to manifest itself even worse. But still side by side for the lead. Bogart on that bottom line. We've seen this so many times tonight. You just can't get the momentum off the corner. You can see how strong he is through the center, but just can't do anything about that 51 in front of him. Mitch Brown doing a very good job to keep that lead in front of Jared Bogart at this point.
Yeah, and what that 51 is doing is he's pinching that number 00 down in the corners. You see the number 48. Looks like he's rejoined the racetrack as we're side by side once again for the race lead. Side by side a little bit further back in the pack. And look at the 51. He's now running way up the racetrack versus what he was doing earlier. He was pinching Bogart down there on the inside line. But this has also allowed Jimmy Mckee and the number 31 machine to close back in. And beyond McKee's rough finish at Eldora, Mckee has been on an absolute tear in the Sam Maxwell Customs Truck Series. I'm sure he's a bit disappointed that he didn't actually start this season because with his recent form, he would be in the playoffs. Absolutely no question about it. As he's currently running in the third position, 29 laps to go. And Mitch Brown just doing everything he can to try and hold on to the lead up at the front. Look at Bogart. He's also trying everything he can. We've seen him use that inside line all night long, but to not much success.
And this 2-car battle for the lead has now become a 4-car battle for the lead because Jimmy Mckee, who we're riding on board now, he's kind of trying to get his nose up above Jared Bogart, gets into the wall a little bit, but there's Will Worsler as well. He's gotten himself right into the thick of things. Thoughts he had some damage on the truck. It's all in the rear, I think, so it's not, ooh, sideways, as we're talking about him. Sideways still out of turn number 4, but he saves it. Wow, we've seen a lot of that tonight, but something, maybe with the setup or something about the track is making these trucks very slick.
Yeah, Worsler was doing everything he could to stay off of the number 31 machine. You can see he was tucked up right behind him. I think he pushed a little bit on entry, and the number 31 rolled out of it a little bit earlier. And you and I know, Cameron, if you're not expecting that as a driver, and the car in front of you rolls out of the gas just a little bit sooner, you might have to check up and try and do some evasive maneuver. And I think that's what Worsler did. He kind of got himself loose there, but a fantastic job of saving it. Actually didn't even lose a spot to the number 17, Richard Stallings, but nonetheless, this battle for the race lead rages on up at the front. We'll have 23 laps to go this time by. Bogart's got the best run he's had all night. Contact for the race lead between the 51 and the 00, but nonetheless, the 51 has squeaked his nose in front one more time, and I thought Bogart might have had it there. And now Bogart's going to go up to the top side here, Cameron. The 51's going to have to slam the door on him if he's going to try and hold on to the race lead. And here comes Bogart now back on the inside. The 51 going to try and pinch him down. This is some great racing between these front two.
Yeah, this is the Mitch Bogart and Mckee show right now. These top 3 are putting on a whale of a show. And Bogart, you got to think he's got to be so frustrated because he cannot do anything with that 51. He's tried so hard all night to make that bottom work, and it's just not working. So I think he's just finally given it up, and he's going to get himself to the top. And you see from the onboard of Mckee right now, he's running right up next to that wall, trying to do something, trying to get that momentum off the corner to dive down below Mitch Brown and try to make the move right here. You see it might work here. He dove it into turn number 1, but just not enough corner or center speed to do anything with it. So Mitch Brown doing a good job to hold off that 00 off the corner, and I believe that the 00 did lead that lap. We're gonna have to see if Bogart make the move off of turn number 2. Yes, he does. So finally, after all that work he's been doing all night, he's been able to get the lead from Mitch Brown with just a little bit of help from a lap car. But either way, move that 00 to the lead, and really that's where he get in the wall a little bit, but no harm, no foul. That's kind of what happens here at Bristol. So he's trying to get out here and get his playoffs to a good start, but so is Mitch Brown. He is also a playoff driver, so he's going to want to beat that 00 if he can.
Yeah, and Jared Bogart, he's actually going to miss one of these races in the round of 12, so he needs to get out there out front and try and win this thing, as we see this battle between 2 championship contenders. That's the number 6 of Jared Haggerty and the 42 of Jim Foose battling back there. That's a battle for the 12th position, so move Foose into that 12th position, getting around that number 6. Foose's next position would be Pete Baskins. Baskins about a second up the road from him. Some decent battles inside the top 10 between championship contenders Jason Stewart and Tyler Salvo. Seville in the number 11 machine. Just behind this battle, this is the number 73, Jonathan Holstein, trying to get around Stallings. Stallings holding on to the 5th position here now with only 14 laps to go. And here comes Mitch Brown. Mitch Brown not losing too much ground on Bogart. He dived to the inside in turn number 1. But Brown is holding the inside line here, and Mogart's using that high groove. So we kind of see roles reversed here. Brown on the inside line, Mogard using the high line. We have to keep in mind, Mitch Brown's tires are 11 laps older than Mogard's. Now there's not 11 green flag laps extra on Brown's tires, but he's definitely on a few laps older tires. Trying to see what he can do behind that 00 machine. Here comes Mogard. Now Mogard's going to try the inside line. So a couple of different strategies up at the front here. Mogard used the high line for a while. Now he's jumped back down to the low line where we've seen him try to make passes all night long. And if I was Mitch Brown, Cameron, I would jump up to the high side here because Mogard is leaving the door up there open. And even though this is a short track, aero push is actually a thing in Bristol because your speeds are so high.
Absolutely, and I was going to say that it looked like for a few laps there, Mogard and Mitch Brown were both kind of swapping lines back and forth. When Mogard would go low, Mitch would go high, and vice versa. But it seems like that they've kind of both planted themselves on the bottom right now. We see a battle here for the 3rd position. Mckee and Worsler going at it. Worsler is going to want to get around that 31 if he can. So whatever damage that 29 had, not affecting him too terribly much because that truck is still pretty fast, but hasn't been able to do anything with him just yet.
And Cameron, this race means a little bit more for Jared Mogard. Like I said, he's missed one. He's going to miss one of the races in this round, but a win here tonight would actually advance him to the round of 8. So here we go. With 8 laps to go, a win would advance either of these front 2 drivers to the round of 8. They have pulled away quite a bit from your 3rd place driver, Jimmy Mckee, who's under fire right now by the number 29 machine of Will Worsler. But look at all the traffic in front of your race leaders. They're catching up to this traffic very, very quickly here with now only 6 laps to go. Laps are winding down quickly, but they're going to catch him. No questions asked. Will Worsler, Jimmy Mckee contact going off into turn number 3, and Will Worsler is going to get the 3rd position. But now we're going to watch your race leaders battle through this traffic here with 5 laps to go. And Cameron, this is not what I want to see out my front bumper if I'm Jared Mogard.
Absolutely, the anxiety in that car has to be through the roof right now for both Mogard and Brown. But it looks like they're getting through the traffic pretty well right now. And you know, Mitch Brown probably sensing a little bit of blood because this is the best position you can be in to be in 2nd place when the leader catches traffic, because that is your opportunity. But only 4 laps to go now, 3 laps to go, and there is not much time to do anything right now. So Mitch is going to make a move. He's going to do it now.
Yeah, and Brian Yazik, he stayed off the racetrack. He knows what this battle for the win means amongst these drivers. He wisely backed out of it, but Mogard's been able to show his way through this little pack of lapped cars a little bit better than Mitch Brown. He's now gotten himself clear. That's exactly what he wants as he heads off into turn number 3 and 4. White flag in hand of the flagman. 1 lap to go, and Jared Mogard's got about 10 truck lengths on the number 51 of Mitch Brown coming out of turn number 2. Clean sailing. Mitch Brown not able to get around Alan Young just yet, and that's allowed the 00 to scoot away one more time, and Jared Mogard gets the checkered flag here at Bristol Motor Speedway, kind of avenging his loss here in the Cup side of things earlier this year. But Mogard, fast all night long, kept that truck nice and clean. Great recovery by Mitch Brown in that number 51 machine. Good recovery also for Will Worsler coming home 3rd after getting that pit road speeding penalty. Jason Stewart, one of those drivers in the round of 12, finishing inside the top 10. Tyler Seville. And what about Jim Foose in the number 42 machine squeaking out of top 10 in that Menards Toyota Tundra? Couple of drivers there at the end coming on strong.
Yeah, that 42, we saw him getting involved in a wreck pretty early on, but was able to kind of make his way back up from that in a good top 10 for a lot of these drivers that were involved in something tonight. Of course, Will Worsler involved in that big wreck on the backstretch. Didn't really hurt him too incredibly much. And a couple other drivers in the top 10, so it's good to see that. But Bogart doing some celebratory burnouts. Well-deserved victory for that 00 car. He drove a pretty, I would say, flawless race for Bristol standards.
Yeah, stayed out of all the mess and was able to make the pass there with under 20 laps to go for the race lead. And for Mogard's sake, he'll be very happy because this win will clinch him into the round of 8. And, we've talked to him last week, and he said he was a little bit concerned because he is going to miss one of the round of 12 races. But now, knowing that he's punched his ticket to the final 8, I'm sure he'll rest a little bit easier tonight, leaving the Bristol Motor Speedway. And next week, of course, we do have another exciting race. It's a road course next week at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. But we will line up your top 3 finishers here for you. We will talk to Will Worsler, Mitch Brown, Jared Mogart, each of those drivers contending for this championship. We'll be right back here in just a moment with each of those drivers. All right, well, we've been flipping through the rule book here while we've been away. And all this flipping through the rule book has actually highlighted some little key text. And that is actually you only get to punch your ticket with a win if you qualify for each event. And if Mogard does not qualify for one of the 3 races here in this round of playoff, this win actually does not punch him into the final 8. So it will be a points situation for Mogart, but he was your points leader coming into tonight. Good finish here tonight, so we'll have to see how that plays out. But nonetheless, we do have your top 3 finishers lined up, and their 3rd place finisher will be the number 29 of Will Worsler. And here he is. Will Worsler, Peter Short, 3 Wide TV booth. You got a copy?
Yes, I do, Peter.
All right, man. We talked to you there with about 40 or so laps to go. And we were a little bit concerned because you had a lot of damage on the front end of that number 29 machine, but it didn't seem to hurt you all too much. You had a little rough and tumble there with the number 31 machine there in the closing laps, but you're able to come home with that 3rd place finish here tonight. Tell us how important it is to get your playoff, get in your playoff mindset and get your playoff started with a great top 3 run.
Well, it is important, but I don't feel like I had a great top 3 run. I really killed myself with the pit road speeding penalty and then getting caught up with the damage. It did seem like that I couldn't get the run off that I had before. I don't know if that was because of the rear end damage I had or not, but I did not have as much rear grip before, and it was really wanting to come around on me towards the end.
Yeah, it seemed like the trucks were a little bit of a handful here tonight, and we saw you there probably with about 10, 15 laps to go. You got wicked sideways on entry to turn number 3, I believe, and you kind of dirt tracked it through 3 and 4. How difficult were these trucks from your perspective?
Well, on laps like that, they were pretty difficult, I'd say. They were definitely a handful. It was fun. I noticed at the start of the race, or actually during practice, that the track state was like 56%, and it was really rubbered in, which kills grip. And so I knew it was going to be fun. And usually something like that works out to my advantage, but not when you make mistakes and do what I did tonight. You got guys like Mogart and Mitch Brown. Mogart's he's solid every week. He doesn't ever make mistakes, and I certainly do. So. He brings it every week, and I got to try to. I'm going to have to be in on my game more. Try to be a little bit more like him, I suppose.
Speaking of being on your game, you kind of have to be on your game next week when we go to a road course turning left and right around Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, formerly known as Mosport. Are you a road course racer yourself? Are you looking forward to that race, or is that one that you've kind of circled and said, if I can get out of here with a good finish, I'll take it?
So I don't own it. I've never drove it, but I'm not going to go in that race with the mindset of if I get a good finish, I'll take it. I'm going to go. I'm going to buy the track, and I'm going to do everything I got to do this week to get a win.
Well, let me tell you, it's a pretty fun racetrack. You just have to watch out for locking up your front wheels going into the hairpin, because that can get you in a mess in a hurry. But nonetheless, after that, we got Las Vegas, and you have to be on your game there, because you have to throw the dice at Vegas each and every time. It's only a couple weeks away, Vegas, the last round of the round of 12. What are your thoughts about Vegas?
I feel good about Vegas, and I feel good about mile and a halves in general. I've been good there in the past, so that's probably one of the playoff races I have circled that I'll be really disappointed if I don't do well and contend for a win.
All right, well, we'll be looking for you to contend at Vegas, definitely. But before we let you go, you got some shout-outs for us here on 3 Wide TV?
Yeah, I do. Our team switched over to Will Worsler Racing, brought it over to ASRS for the playoffs the rest of the season. So both of the WWR cars got top 10s tonight, me and Tyler Seville. So that was good. Doug Mullins did make it tonight, and look forward to get him back running with us. But I'd like to thank Doug and the sponsors Perky Pints and Slice, and my wife for watching every one of my races, my buddy Craig Stykes for watching my races and telling me how bad I was after the race in my text messages. So that's about it. 3 Wide, too. You guys do a good job.
All right. Well, best of luck next week at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Get those practice laps in this week, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again then.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is your third place finisher here tonight. One of your championship contenders, the number 29 of Will Worsler. And I do believe that Cameron Rich, alongside me, has caught up with your second place finisher, the number 51 of Mitch Brown.
What even happened to Yazzie? Did he fucking wrecked him?
Yeah.
We got him.
What the hell? You guys pulled me at the wrong time. What the hell?
Yeah. Kind of
Got him.
We booted in on this conversation, Mitch. Well, we know you got a copy, so...
I got a big copy. What the hell?
Yeah, we're going to go and throw a paste in there real quick. Finishing second, Mitch Brown booted in his conversation. Hope it was a good one, but kind of... Just tell us how your race went, just because it sounds like you were talking about it when we got you in here.
Well, I was talking about what the heck happened to Brian Yazzie, but my race was, God, it was like a roller coaster. You know those wooden roller coasters that go really high and they go really low, and you get all that speed and just I was good at the beginning of the race, and then I hit the wall on the inside, and then I was like, well, what the hell do I do now? And then I stayed down. I was like, oh, let's see if this works out. And, well, it did. I got second place. So I mean, that's how my race went.
Yeah, definitely a good analogy for really the last part of that race where we saw you and Jared Mogard swapping lines back and forth. A good little show there. But have to ask you, you gave it about as good of a try on those older tires as you could have. You did a very good job there holding that 00 off for as long as you did. Is there anything you could have done a little bit differently to maybe hold him off, or do you think those tires were just gonna be the difference?
I honestly did as much as I could, because if I ran the bottom, he would have run. He ran the top. If I ran the top, he was going the bottom. It was just kind of a little game of cat and mouse. So I just did as much as I could, and I mean, I really wanted to win that race, but after my night, I'll take second any day of the week.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? Bristol is done and over with. First round of this round of 12 in the playoffs. Next week we go to Canadian Tire, and then after that we go to Las Vegas. How are you looking forward to those two events?
I'm looking forward to the next few events. I actually won't be able to race next week. I got some work commitments I got to go to, so I won't be able to race next week. But hopefully I can minimize any loss of points or take a provisional, and hopefully try to get as many points as I can for Vegas. Try to advance on the next round.
We definitely started off with a good one here tonight. Second place for you, and we thank you very much for talking with us. But before we let you go, you got any shout-outs for these 3-Wide TV viewers or anyone?
I just got to thank all the boys back at the shop, bringing us a good piece each and every week. I got to thank Dirty Bird Sim Racing. I got to thank Stu, Jason Stewart, my team, and the restart for helping me count down. I think that restart where me and him stayed out really helped me get that lead. And if I didn't have him there, I probably wouldn't have held off Jared as much as I could. I also gotta thank Splash and Go Graphics. I gotta thank one of my new teams I'm a part on, Apex SimSport, and especially I gotta thank you guys for putting on this. I gotta thank you guys for putting on the broadcast each and every week. But you gotta let me know when you pull me in, because I'm having a conversation with someone and this shit, we're going on live TV. Oh, don't be blaming him for that. Come on now.
All right. Well, we're just going to blame Carlos because that's what we do up here in the booth. But Mitch, thank you very much for talking with us. So we're going to let you get back to your conversation if you want. So congrats on your second place finish.
Yeah. Now we're gonna put blame Carlos on the truck for Las Vegas 2 weeks.
There we go.
Hashtag blame Carlos.
See, we're doing work up here in the booth. Carlos, you're welcome. But thank you for talking with us, Mitch.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. That was your second place finisher, Mitch Brown. And I think Peter has a word before he talks with our winner.
Yeah, I'm just basically going to say, Carlos, we're trying to expand your audience by using hashtag blame Carlos and at 3Wide TV on Twitter. So I definitely have a hashtag blame Carlos here today. But nonetheless, yes, I have caught up with your race winner, driver of the number 00. That is Jared Bogart himself. And Jared, kind of a topsy-turvy race here. A lot of the contenders early in the race didn't make it to the end, but you sure did. Kept that 00 nice and clean throughout the night. But the number 51 did not make it easy for you out there, but you're able to get that win here, winning the first race of the round of 12. Tell us how important it is for you, especially with the fact that you won't make it to all 3 races in this round.
Yeah, very important. The goal here tonight was to win, and anything less was not going to be good enough. So, I don't know. It's kind of a crazy one there. There were a couple of wrecks, and it seemed like we, well, not a couple. There were a few wrecks, and took out all the point guys, and 55 got taken out too, and it was crazy. We were able to survive it and be there at the end and battle the 51 in Bristol again.
Yeah, it seems like you and Mitch Brown tend to end up near each other on the racetrack quite a bit out there. But, is Bristol one of those racetracks that you circle and you enjoy going to? Of course, you just lost the SMS Cup Series race here earlier this year in the ASRS Series to the number 29 of Will Borsler on a last lap pass. So you almost did the Bristol double. Do you enjoy this place?
No, I don't really look forward to it just because it's kind of a tight track, and if they wreck, it's really hard to avoid it. But yeah, thanks for reminding me about the Cup race. I was just hoping the yellow wasn't going to come out again like it did in the Cup race. But no, I'm starting to like it a little bit. 51 has been able to roll the bottom here the last few times and make us all look really slow. So I practiced that the last couple of days and finally figured it out. And I kind of threw him off a little bit, he said, when I went down there late in the race. So I think we found something there to, not be. Before we were just a guy where we could run the top and that was it. We couldn't run the bottom, but I feel confident in both lines now. So that's starting to like the place. It's kind of fun now. You gotta be smart, and you gotta be able to have the talent behind the wheel to make passes without, dooring people and putting them in the wall and stuff. So I like it. I like that challenge part of it.
Absolutely. And correct me if I'm wrong when I say this, but as the producer says, I'm wrong. But you will not be at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park next week. Is that correct?
I will be at Canadian Tire. I will not be at the Vegas, the final race. I think it's Vegas.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will not be at that one. We'll be there next week to hopefully beat the guys we need to beat and have a big enough point lead and see where it all shakes out in the final race.
Okay, so let's talk about, because I was going to ask you about Vegas. Now I have to rewrite and go back to my notes and make sure I put it in, circle it, that you'll be there next week. But Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, it's a road course, and I think I remember last week you saying that you're going to have to put in a decent number of practice laps there. When do you start practicing for these events? Do you start tomorrow, or do you start sometime in the weekend, or when does it all culminate for when you start?
Well, I think the official stuff goes there next Monday at like 8 o'clock Eastern, so probably Monday about it. No, yeah, it'll probably be Monday night and then Tuesday afternoon if we get some time. But I think I finished like 6th or 7th there last year, so I'm just not a road course guy. So you just kind of gotta for me, it's reteach myself how to get around the racetrack and what to do. But it's hard doing that because practice, it's all about hot lapping. But and kind of like tonight, the race pace slowed down once you get into the race, and that's the same with any type of racing. So it's just feeling somewhat comfortable and confident in yourself and going out there and doing the best that you can next week when the actual race starts. So I think we'll be okay. We can come out of there with if we can get a top 5, that'd be great. But if we can get anywhere from 5th to 8th, it'll be a good night for us.
All right. Well, Jared, before we let you go, you got some shout-outs for us here on 3-Wide TV?
Yeah, Buffalo Bar Grill out of Greenwood, South Carolina. I buy power computers, Twitchy race reports. All the boys at MOSRN. This is 4 in a row for the team on Tuesday night, so we're definitely clicking them off, so that's good. Good team effort, and hopefully our buddy Jack Wills can have a good run tomorrow night in the Super Truck and get that championship. And just got to thank Jim for the league and Maxwell for the sponsorship, and you guys for the outstanding broadcast. We'll give a point to the producer because he was right, we were wrong, but we won't mention that too much.
Yeah, and one thing our producer didn't get right tonight, so now we get to jab each other up here in the booth quite a bit. Jared, your name was actually not blue tonight. We had all the playoff drivers in blue except for yours, so for that we apologize. However, we do want to make it clear to the fans, you are in the playoffs for sure. But your name just wasn't blue tonight, so I don't know what was up with that, but we'll try and get it fixed for next week at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
So the producer lost his point that he just got.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all right.
plus 1 minus 1.
Well,
it balances out.
If it's not blue, that means I'm already into the next round, right? Hopefully that's where we're going with.
Well, unfortunately, if that was the case, a lot of other drivers would be in the next round. But nonetheless, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We'll see you next week at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
Sounds good, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is your race winner, Jared Bogart, in that 00 machine. Very fast here tonight around this joint. And Cameron, it's a tricky track. You either love it, you hate it. Sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. That is the Bristol way. And boy, oh boy, Brian Yazek, you see, bottom of your screen there, 43 laps led, but doesn't come home to victory here tonight. Cameron, lead us away through the top 10 of tonight's finishing order.
Coming home with the win, the one you just heard from Jared Bogart. Definitely we needed that. He's not going to be here for Las Vegas. We thought it was Mosport, but it is going to be Las Vegas. So starting off his playoffs with a good note. Mitch Brown, close but no cigar, coming home just behind Jared Bogart in second place. Will Worsler coming home in third. Jimmy Mckee in fourth. Richard Stallings, good run for him in the fifth position. Started 21st. I believe he is our biggest mover of the race. Jonathan Holste coming home in sixth. Nick Curling in seventh. Jason Stewart in eighth. Tyler Seville in ninth. And Jim Foose coming home with the top 10.
Finishing in the 11th position is the number 43 of Steve Buhal. A good recovery for him. He was involved, I believe, in the first caution here tonight. Pete Baskins comes home in 12th. Jared Haggerty 13th. one of your championship playoff drivers. Lee Staples comes home 14th. Alan Young, another playoff driver, in 15th. Edward Bray, 16th. We saw him lead a couple laps, but he comes home 1 lap down at the end. Alex Giese, 17th. Richard Fletcher, 18th. Jack Wells, 19th. And Cody Spiker, who had a good showing going, he comes home 20th. The first car not to finish here tonight, 24 laps down. Finishing 21st, the number 28 of Troy Haight. Finishing 22nd, Brad Cross. 23rd for Brandon Stokes. 24th, Josh Walker. 25th, Tim Knott. Brian Yazik led the most laps here tonight, but comes home 26th, 44 laps down. Kelsey Rogers, 27th. Dylan Hickey, 28th. Chris Titus, 29th. And the first car to retire tonight was the number 30 of Christopher Lane. Well, Cameron, one race of the 3-race sprint to the round of 8 down. Next week, we got Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and then Las Vegas will round out the round of 12. Lots of rounds. Boy, we've been trying to round all night long, and I tell you what, it has got to me as we wind down this stream. I'm just trying to come up with words close to round, but nonetheless, it's a great show. Kept us on the edge of our seats for the entire race, and that's kind of what you expect here when you come to Bristol, but I'm sure we'll see the same thing next week at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. But before we let you go here for 3 Wide TV, I want to give a few shout-outs. First off, I want to give a shout-out to Thomas Morris for this graphics package, which is getting better each and every week, learning some cool things about it. Also want to give a shout-out to SimTV for all the graphics that you see on your screen. Also, want to give a shout out to some of the supporters here in the ASRS series. Of course, Sam Maxwell Customs. Of course, this was the Sam Maxwell Customs 125 here tonight. They sponsor the league and the race. SMS, Sim Marketing Solutions, Driven Designs, iRacing, iRacingIFlag, Sackett and Brake, Survey Inc., Fame, and Coffman Racing Graphics. And of course, Jim Foose for putting this together each and every week, the league organizer. Going to be interesting to see. Jim Foose sounds like he might be jumping out of the race truck at the end of the season. Only time will tell, but we'll see then. Well, Cameron, for myself, you, and the producer, Carlos Acosta, who isn't always right, we want to give each and every one of you a fantastic night, and we'll see you again next week at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park for the Sam Maxwell Customs Truck Series here on 3 Wide TV.